I like making those phone calls when the books come in, so to let them know, hey, your book is in. We'll hang on to it for you to stop in and see us. So that's a lot of fun.
Hello readers, I'm Victoria Wood and you're listening to Biblio Happy Hour, the show that shares new book releases, we chat to the authors who write them, and the people who sell them. Every week, we'll share some of the new books that will be hitting bookshelves that week. We'll invite an author or two or more on the show to talk about their debut or newest release, and we'll introduce you to an independent bookseller and their bookstore so you can stop by, get tailored book recommendations, and pick up some new books when you're in town. So make space on your bookshelves, follow us on social media, and make sure you're subscribed to Biblio Happy Hour wherever you listen to your favorite shows. Readers, Biblio Lifestyle is a newsletter, community, and space for people who can't live a life without books in it. Every Friday, you'll get a special treat in your inbox filled with inspirational content, book recommendations, self-care tips, original interviews, and things we think you'll enjoy. The best part? You'll only receive one email per week, and it will be an amazing 5-minute read or less. So if you're not on the list, sign up now for our free weekly delivery at bibliolifestyle.com. I've included a link in the show notes so you can sign up there. This week, I'll be chatting to bookseller Bob Lingle from Off the Beaten Path Bookstore, located in Lakewood, New York. We'll be talking about his bookstore, the town of Lakewood, how he got involved in bookselling, and so much more. Bob, thank you so much for coming on the show, and welcome to Biblio Happy Hour.
Thanks for having me.
So really quick before we get started, are you a coffee or a tea person?
I am absolutely a coffee person.
Okay, you start your day with coffee always?
Yes.
Alrighty, sounds good. So tell us about your bookstore, Off the Beaten Path. Tell us where you're located and share a bit about your town.
Sure. I took over the store in March of last year, but the store was first opened in April of 2009.
Okay.
We're on the southern end of Chautauqua Lake. The area that we're located in is known for the Chautauqua Institution, which has this great summer series where they have people from all over the world, writers, filmmakers, come and speak at their institution. We also newly have the National Comedy Center. We're right next to the home of Lucille Ball. Our town is right next to that town.
Oh, wow.
But it's really we're located on the main drag of a historic village. It's just kind of like a classic American small town.
Okay, sounds good. So tell us, what can book lovers and readers and just anyone wandering into your bookstore, what can they expect? Give us a visual of, coming in the door.
Our store is built into an old home, and we share the space with a coffee shop. So you go down one hallway and you're in the coffee shop. If you turn left when you walk in the door, you're in the bookstore.
Right.
Many people are surprised with how much we offer in a small space. First walk in, they think the room that I'm sitting in is the only part of the bookstore, and then they go back and we have a middle room, and then they go back further and we have a children's room in the back.
Okay, so there are many different areas and nooks and crannies where people can browse and hang out and find some really awesome books.
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. So I noticed you mentioned that you took over the bookstore in March 2018. So when you told your friends and family you were getting into book business, what were their reactions? Was this something you personally knew you always wanted to do it, or did the opportunity just present itself?
Well, what I tell people is I'm exactly where I want to be, but I took a very weird ride to get here.
Right.
I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in integrated marketing and communication, and I've worked on horror films and on political campaigns. I studied in the seminary, and I've also unloaded trucks for UPS in the middle of the night. But my path to bookstore ownership started when I really realized that I hated renting cars as a full-time job.
Right.
So I took a job with Barnes & Noble as one of their first digital sales leads back in, I think it was 2010. And from there, from Barnes & Noble, I was recruited through LinkedIn to work for Follett. I was managing 2 different college bookstores.
Wow.
And it was when I was managing my own store that led me to want to own my own store. And after a 1.5-year stint, I was a stay-at-home dad. My wife moved us to our hometown for a teaching position, and our local store posted on Facebook that they were looking for a new owner, so I ran right in.
Switching gears a bit, what would you say so far is the thing you love the most, but also what is the biggest challenge that you have being an independent bookseller?
The thing I love the most was after years of working for corporate bookstores, I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I'm able to connect with the community in so many different ways, from the events that we host at our store to the events that we go to right in the community, be it like little markets, or I've been trying to develop as many relationships with the surrounding schools. So anytime I'm offered the chance to go into a school for a literacy night or partner for an author event, make sure to capitalize on that. So developing the relationships within the community has been my favorite. The biggest challenge as an owner and operator, the grind of doing absolutely everything is tough, but very rewarding. The biggest challenge by owning a store, it's more so personal. Just I no longer have the joy of just walking around a bookstore.
Yeah.
But I like that I can provide that joy for our customers.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sounds like a blessing and a curse, but but I'm happy you're able to find some joy out of that. And wrapping up, what would you like everyone listening to know about you and your bookstore? What do you want everyone to know about Off the Beaten Path?
There is nothing we won't do, or at least try to do, to better serve our customers.
Alrighty, sounds good. And Bob, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your bookstore and just everything books.
Thank you for helping to highlight our store and other stores like us.
Readers, you can connect with Off the Beaten Path Bookstore in Lakewood, New York at their website obpbooks.com. You can also connect with them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at OBP Books. And that's O as in Oscar, B as in Bravo, P as in Papa, Books. If you'd like to tune in to the rest of my conversation with Bob Lingle, the full podcast episode will be available on our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/bibliofinder. To find an independent bookstore near you or when you're traveling, visit bibliofinder.com. Bibliofinder is a new online directory for independent bookstores, and they help users to find bookstores worldwide based on their current or planned location. If you're on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, please tag Bibliofinder in your indie bookstore photos. Before I get started with this week's new releases, I'd like to highlight one literary birthday happening this week as well. On February 12th, children's and young adult fiction writer Judy Blume was born on this day in 1938. She's best known for her books Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, Forever, and starring Sally J. Friedman as herself. Now, I will be mentioning some of the books that will be available on bookshelves during the week of Monday, February 10th. And I'm thrilled to have author Sarah Pinborough, Gigi Levangie, Hannah Rothschild, and Constance Sayers on the show to talk about their new books. New this week from Eco Books is In the Land of Men, a memoir by Andreen Miller. In the Land of Men is a coming of age in the male-dominated literary world of the 90s. Also new from Eco Books, The Only Child by Mie Seo. The Only Child is a novel that follows a criminal psychologist who has discovered shocking and possibly dangerous connections between a serial killer and her stepdaughter. New this week in paperback from Harper Books, Parkland, Birth of a Movement by Dave Collin. New in paperback from Harper Perennial, The Secretary by Renee Knight. New this week from Harper Via, The American Fiancé by Eric Dupont. New this week from Mira Books is The Unwilling by Kelly Braffett. Also new from Mira Books, Sisters by Choice by Suzanne Mallory. This is book 4 in the Blackberry Island series. New this week from Avon Books, Our Stop by Laura Jane Williams. New this week from William Morrow Books is a new twisty psychological thriller entitled Dead to Her. And we have the author Sarah Pinborough here with us to share all the details. Sarah, welcome to Biblio Happy Hour.
Thank you for having me.
So I know this is far from your first rodeo, it isn't your first book or anything, but your new thriller Dead to Her will be available on bookshelves this week. How are you feeling? How excited are you?
I am pretty excited. It is a bit unusual because it's out in America before it's out in England this time. So normally England goes first, so I kind of have done the excitement and then it comes out in America later. But this time, because it's a very summery kind of, very hot, steamy kind of setting of the book. In England, they decided that February was maybe not the best month since it's miserable over here. So it's coming out in August in England. So yeah, it's kind of, I'm quite excited, in that kind of nervous, apprehensive, oh gosh, please don't let it tank kind of way.
Yes. I think you'll be fine. But tell listeners about your new novel, Dead to Her, and what can readers expect going in?
Well, I kind of describe it as Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil meets Big Little Lies with a dash of Jackie Collins and a little bit of weird, So it kind of follows Savannah elite society, two second wives. There's one second wife called Marcy, who's come from a very bad background, and then a new second wife arrives on the scene, and there's rivalry, there's murder, there's a little bit of voodoo, and a lot of secrets to be uncovered. Mm-hmm. So I think for me, it's a fun read. I want it to be a fun read for people. Mm-hmm. My last book, Cross Her Heart, was quite a serious book. This is more in the vein of Behind Her Eyes than Cross Her Heart was. It's kind of, a bit fun.
Right.
But dark.
Yes. Okay. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask, who's your favourite character in the novel?
Ooh. I mean, I'm not going to lie. None of them are overly nice people.
I know.
They're all a bit, there are some nice ones among sort of the Savannah Society people, but I would say Marcy, the sort of main central character, because, I always think that most people who are not very nice people don't actually think of themselves as not very nice people. And she's a bit like that, She's got a very good reason for everything, but she is quite, she wants to hold on to what she has, Right. She's quite tough. And I kind of like that.
Okay. So is there a particular scene in the novel that you enjoyed writing the most, or is there a scene that resonated with you personally?
No, I don't think any of them particularly resonated with me because it's quite a different life to my life. And it is a bit of a tricky one because, without bringing a downer onto my quite fun read, my dad was dying in the year that I wrote this book, so I would have spent more time in Savannah. And I did, but my dad got diagnosed with terminal cancer, and then obviously the year went sort of downhill from there. Right. So although it was kind of I kind of write this really fun steamy scene and then shoot off to the hospital, but I actually left kind of half of it. I lied a lot about how much I'd written. And then after, God love him, my dad actually passed away, I kind of then slowly got myself back together and then was like, oh my God, I have to hand this book in. So I wrote kind of the last 50,000 words very quickly. And then, they hold together best. But I think I just quite like writing about that whole area. I mean, the South is such an area of intrigue to the English. We love it. Yeah. We all want to go to the South. When people say, where do you want to go to in America? It's never New York. No. It's always, I want to go to the Southern States and, drink lemonade on a porch. Absolutely. So I quite like being in that world. And, I'm kind of hoping that someone in Savannah will invite me to do an event there. So no, I did kind of enjoy most of it. There was nothing awful to write in it. Right. There's nothing terrible to write in it. It was all fun to write, really. I think even the dark bits were fun to write.
Okay, awesome. So getting into your process now, and I know you kind of gave us a little bit in your previous answer, but how long did it take to write this novel?
Well, this one was a longer one, obviously, because there was other stuff going on. So I missed having a book out last year. On average, I'd say a book takes about 6 months to actually write, but I tend to let them just stay for a couple of months to have the ending in my head. So with this one, I started it and I had a completely different baddie, for want of a better word, a completely different person behind it all. And then I had to stop and I thought, oh, this doesn't feel right. So I stopped for about a month while I kind of mulled it over again. And then I thought, oh, I know. And then I could sort of start. So I can't, some people, I don't know how they do it. I think they're probably psychopaths. Write without planning. I can't do that. I have to know where I'm going. Okay. So I have to have at least the ending to aim at.
Right.
So that's my general kind of rule of thumb. But, in my old incarnation of writing before, sort of Behind Your Eyes, as I tend to think of it, sometimes I'd write 2 books a year. And I used to think, oh, that's quite easy, write 2 books a year. But as you move up the levels, it becomes more complicated. You have to, your editors are very keen on you hitting a particular style because obviously that's what they're selling you on. It's, marketing you as a brand per se.
Right.
And there's just more publicity stuff to do. There's more, and I'm doing some TV stuff. So, my book writing has slowed down a bit because I'm working in other areas.
Right.
But yeah, I'd say about 6 months to actually write a book. Because it's literally, 1,000, it's only really 3 months you could probably do it if you knew where you were going.
Right.
Like 1,000 words a day is not, you've got plenty of time for Netflix around that.
I love it. So if you didn't write, what would you do for work or as a creative pursuit?
Well, when I was young, it was either going to be a writer or an actress/director. And then I realised that they had to get up at 4 and, be out in the cold all day. And having been on set for Behind Your Eyes, it's really boring. So I wouldn't be doing that. I think what I would really have loved to have been would be a barrister,
Right.
Like, I follow all the celebrity cases. When it was the Pistorius case, everyone on my Facebook, instead of calling me Pinborough, was calling me Columborough after Columbo, because I was ahead of them every step of the way. I had it analysed. I was like, yes, but what about this? What about that? And he's going to say this, and he's going to say that. I loved it. So that, I think, but unfortunately, maybe fortunately with the way things turned out, but when I was at school, I didn't work very hard and I didn't get the exam results I needed to go to law school. So,
right.
As it transpired, it's all worked out okay. Right. The legal system will have to live without me.
Yes.
But something like that. But I was a teacher, and actually, everyone's go teaching isn't bad because you get good holidays and kids are exceptionally funny.
True.
They don't often mean to be, but they are, especially teenagers. I love all their tantrums.
And what was the last book that you finished reading that you would now recommend?
I've just been on holiday, so I've read quite a few. I've read one that is not out yet, which I'm not quite sure how it's going to go down in America. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I can say this on your show, so I'm going to say what the normal saying is and what the title of this book is. So the normal saying is The Bucket List.
Mm-hmm.
And the title of the book is The It List. It's about a man in America who it's really good, but it's a bit like Falling Down meets Walter White, from Breaking Bad. It's like this guy's life just all goes horribly wrong, and he just decides he's just going to deal with America, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, I think it's by a man called John Niven, who I think wrote a book called Kill Your Friends, which was about the music industry, which had a film made of it last year. And it was really good, but I'm not quite sure how it's going to go down in America because, it's quite anti-Trump, anti-guns, or, so we'll see how that goes. I also read I Am Dust, which isn't out yet, by Louise Beach, which is a really sweet kind of mystery set in a theatre, and there's a Ouija board and there's a murder, but it's all kind of, everything's wrapped up together. It was really, but very beautifully written.
Oh, okay. So part of the podcast is all about indie bookstores and indie booksellers. So share with our listeners some of your favourite indie bookshops.
Well, this is it's a real put you on the spot because I love Goldsboro Books in London. They're a massive supporter of the crime thriller genre. Dark Delicacies in LA. I'm not sure if they closed, but they were always very good when I was a horror writer. It used to be called the Murder Mystery Bookshop, on Marylebone in High Street.
Okay. But getting back to your new book, Dead to Her, how do you want readers to feel after reading this book? What are the reactions you're hoping for?
Well, I mean, Behind Her Eyes is a blessing and a curse in the, I think the ending of Behind Her Eyes was such a love-or-hate ending and was such a strong kind of twist. I think there's an expectation that I'm supposed to do that every time, which obviously you can't do. But I think this one is the closest to that. It's got a nice, neat little reversal. And, I hopefully people come away thinking, oh, they were atrocious people. But man, that ending
Right.
did them all justice, if you know what I mean,
Yes.
I hope people, what I want for this is I just want people to be able to be entertained for a few hours, and finish it and think, yeah, that was fun. That's what I want. I think entertainment is very underrated. People can be very snooty about entertainment, but entertainment is what keeps us all sane. So sometimes I just want to entertain. So sometimes you write a book where you're trying to, make a point about something or have a big emotional response. I'm not doing that in this one. This is fun. I want it to be a fun thriller.
Sarah, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everyone,
Thank
Dead
you
to
for
Her
having me.
will be available in bookstores on Tuesday, February 11th. Readers, you can connect with author Sarah Pinborough at her website, sarahpinborough.com. And you can connect with her on Twitter at Sarah Pinborough. You can also tune in to the rest of my chat with Sarah in our off-the-cuff discussion over on our Patreon page. She shares more about her work schedule, her favorite books, whether she bookmarks or dog ears her pages, and projects she's currently working on. So head on over to patreon.com/bibliofinder and tune in to the rest of our conversation. New in paperback from Flatiron Books, At the Wolf's Table by Rosella Postorino, translated by Leah Jenko. New this week from FSG Books, Indelicacy by Amina Kane. Indelicacy is a ghostly feminist fable about finding the freedom to live as one desires. Also new from FSG Books, Eden Mine by S.M. Holtz. Eden Mine examines the aftershocks of an act of domestic terrorism rooted in a small Montana town on the brink of abandonment, as it tears apart a family, tests the faith of a pastor and the loyalty of a sister, and mines the deep rifts that come when the reach of the government clashes with individual freedom. Also new from FSG Books, If Men Then, a poetry collection by Eliza Griswold. New from Forge Books, Nobody Does It Better, the complete, uncensored, unauthorized oral history of James Bond by Edward Gross and Mark A. Altman. New this week from Minotaur Books, All the Best Lies by Joanna Schaffhausen. This is book 3 in the Ellery Hathaway series. New this week from Tor Books, The Unspoken Name by A.K. Lockwood. The Unspoken Name is a debut fantasy about an orc priestess turned wizard's assassin, and it's the first book in the Serpent Gates series. New this week from St. Martin's Press, Chanel's Riviera, Glamour, Decadence, and Survival in Peace and War, 1930 to 1944, by Anne de Courcy. New this week from St. Martin's Press is a brand new novel entitled Been There, Married That. And we have the author Gigi Levangie here with us to share all the details. Gigi, welcome to Biblio Happy Hour.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So I know this is far from your first rodeo, but your new novel, Been There, Married That, will be available on bookshelves this week. How are you feeling? How excited are you?
Of course, I'm very excited. It's my 7th book, and honestly, I can't believe that it seems like just a few years ago I decided to become a novelist, and now it's 7 books in. I do have another book that I wrote, so 8 books. It's just kind of surreal, and publishing has changed so much. But I'm always excited to be finished and to have people read my latest.
Absolutely. So tell us about Been There, Married That, and what can readers expect going into this one?
Okay, well, Been There, Married That is, it's all in the title. It's about a Hollywood marriage that disintegrates, but really it's about the aftermath and the wife's relationship with her sister who's just gotten out of prison. And it becomes sort of a War of the Roses with the sisters on one team and the husband and all of his minions on the other team. And it's basically, 80% comedic. Everything I do sort of has a comic twist to it. And I think that's something that we all kind of need right now.
Yes. Absolutely. We really do need
laughs.
Yes.
I guarantee it.
Absolutely. So what inspired you to write this story, Been There, Married That? Give us some details on your process.
Okay. I'm always, my jumping off point is either something in my own life and somebody else's life who I've spoken to. And for me, I thought there was still something to be mined in divorce stories. And I remembered a quote that saying, if you really want to get to know somebody, divorce them. And that kind of was playing in my mind a lot. And finally, I had a title, and I sort of wrote to the title, because I thought it was so funny. And I also have I have 3 sisters, and we are all so different. And I thought, what if one sister took this road and another took a different road? And how can they help each other sort of meet in the middle where normal lives, because being rich doesn't lend itself to a normal lifestyle, and being in prison isn't normal either. So I wanted to find sort of the happy medium between those two.
Right, absolutely. So
yes.
I'm going to put you in the hot seat a little bit and ask you...
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. Who's your favorite character in the novel? If you had to pick one, who's your favorite?
Finn. She's the sister in it. I think she's the one. She's kind of a jailbird, but she has the raw intelligence. She has an eye. She can spot bullshit from a mile away. And in LA, there's no lack of it. When she comes out and she sees how her sister is coping and living this life in this mansion, and her world's falling apart, she knows she can help her and kind of smack her back into reality. And so that's she's my favorite.
Awesome.
For sure.
Getting into your reading life now, though, what was the last book that you finished reading that you would now recommend?
I love Separation Anxiety by Laura Zigman. It's out in March, and it's just a wonderful book about a woman who's in a marriage that's falling apart, and she has such anxiety that she starts carrying her dog around in a sling, on her body. And I related to that. Last year, my favorite book was Less by Andrew Sean Greer. I thought that was incredible.
Right.
There's so many people I love.
Right.
To read. And then I read books on finance. I love reading about how to invest. Yes. I love reading about how to improve my life, my personality. Well, there's no improvement for that. No, I'm kidding. How to age with grace, all that stuff.
Right. When you're not reading or writing, what are you doing?
Okay, I do yoga 4 days a week. I walk. I work out. I'm very much into taking care of my body physically, but not insane. Like I do know people who work out hours a day. That's just not me.
Right.
But I'm very consistent. I have been, this is my 3rd batch of kids. Like I had my sister's kids. I had my stepkids. And then I remembered to have my own kids.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of coming out of that decades really, of raising or helping to raise children. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of an interesting, so I'm sort of transitioning out of that.
Right.
And thinking about my future, although I will follow my boys wherever they go. And they know this, that I am not, they can leave me, but I'm never leaving
them.
Yeah. They get very scared when I talk about that. I don't know why. But I do a lot of cooking, too. So I basically cook dinner every night for my family. And, my kids give me, like, pots and pans and aprons for Christmas. But I love it. Like, those are the moments I love, and those are the ones that matter at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't be happier about that.
Right.
I don't do a lot of socializing except with baristas and people I run into at the coffee shop.
Right.
And that's probably enough for me.
Alrighty, no worries. But getting back to Been There, Married That, how do you want readers to feel after reading this book? What are the reactions you're hoping for?
Okay, I want them to feel hopeful. I want them to be entertained. I want them to have a respite from the constant drumbeat of serious news and, the craziness that we're surrounded by. I want them to laugh. I just want them to feel good. And I think I want them to feel good for Agnes at the end and hopeful, and hopefully that reflects on their own lives.
Right, absolutely. Gigi, thank you so much for coming on the show. Everyone, Been There, Married That will be available in bookstores on Tuesday, February 11th.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Readers, you can connect with author Gigi Levangie at her website, gigilevangie.com. She's also on Twitter and Instagram at Gigi Levangie. You can also tune in to the rest of my chat with Gigi in our off-the-cuff discussion over on our Patreon page. We talk more about her writing process and how it has changed since publishing her first books. We also talk about the difference of writing for screen versus writing a novel. And we also discuss current writing and screen projects she's currently working on. So head on over to patreon.com/bibliofinder and tune in to the rest of our conversation. New this week from Random House, Decoding Boys, New Science Behind the Subtle Art of Raising Sons by Karen Netterson. Also new from Random House, The Queen's Fortune, a novel of Desiree, Napoleon, and the dynasty that outlasted the empire by Alison Pataki. New in paperback from Random House, The Bold World, a memoir of family and transformation by Jodi Patterson. Also new in paperback from Random House, Love Unscripted by Owen Nichols. Also new in paperback from Random House, Oksana Behave by Maria Kuznetsova. Also new from Random House, The King at the Edge of the World by Arthur Phillips. The King at the Edge of the World is a new novel in which Queen Elizabeth's spy masters recruits an unlikely agent for an impossible mission, the only Muslim in England. Newly republished from Modern Library is There is Confusion by Jessie Redmond Fawcett, with an introduction by Morgan Jerkins. There is Confusion is a part of the Modern Library Torchbearer series. New this week from Crooked Lane Books, Wildland by Rebecca Hodge. New this week from Doubleday Books, The Illness Lesson by Claire Beams. New this week from Knopf Books is a new novel entitled House of Trelawney. And we have the author Hannah Rothschild here with us to share all the details. Hannah, welcome to Biblio Happy Hour.
Thank you. Great pleasure to be with you.
So, your new novel, House of Trelawney, will be available in bookshelves in the US this week. How are you feeling? How excited are you?
Well, it's my third book, and I wish I could say that, each birth, if you like, gets easier, but it doesn't. In some ways, it gets more frightening because you know what's at stake. And I think with each book, it's a bit like having a new child. You want that child, it's like the anticipation and is it going to be okay and et cetera, et cetera. So I am very, very nervous.
But excited at the same time.
Yeah. Incredibly excited. For me, actually, each of the books I've written has been a little bit like a magic carpet. They've taken me somewhere that I never expected to go.
Right.
So I remember when I had my first book, I never thought, I'd always dreamed of being an author. I did it quite late in life. And it was the magic carpet that took me to being an author. And then the second book was, again, it just changed my life quite profoundly. So I'm rather interested to know what happens with this one.
Right. I can just imagine. So tell our listeners about your new novel, House of Trelawney, and what can readers expect?
So it's a satire. It's a comedy of manners, a comedy of errors. So this book is part of a long tradition of British literature, which is a kind of satire. So what we love doing is taking the mickey out of ourselves, and particularly out of the class system, which unfortunately we're still all obsessed by. So I think the first example was Chaucer was writing in the 14th century, and he wrote about people going on a pilgrimage, and he had lots and lots of fun at the expense of people who took themselves too seriously. So my book is set in 2008, and it's in a huge, crumbling, rambling Cornish castle called Trelawney, which has been home to the same family for 800 years. And to give you an idea of the size, it's got a room for every single day of the year. It's got 4 miles of corridors. It's got 3,800 miles of pipes running around it. But unfortunately, the roof is caving in and water is pouring through. And the incumbent family, or the latest Earls of Trelawney, now live in kind of a couple of rooms which aren't even heated. And every week, the poor, long-suffering wife and mother has to go to the shop and buy a kind of, great block of mince or whatever she can forage from the garden or the hedgerows. So that's how the book opens. You find this family desperately clinging on to the past. The son and heir has pretensions, and he believes he can play the stock market. So in 2008, he sets off and he double mortgages the house and puts every single thing he has on the stock market, with, as you can imagine, pretty catastrophic consequences. And that's how we start, ... So it's the story of old money, new money, and no money. Right. So we're used to seeing kind of those houses on Downton Abbey or The Crown, various other, television series or novels. You're used to seeing them with kind of upstairs, downstairs, lots of servants, lots of privilege, etc., etc. But this family is not privileged. So that's the setting, but the heart of the book is the story of 3 female friendships. So 3 women who've known each other since they were children and who are absolutely inseparable best friends. But one event, which I won't reveal, bust the friendship apart. And in a way, the 3 of them have been living since then, hoping to kind of catch hold of the threads of the former friendship. And the book, in a way, is about female friendship. It's about why it's so important and what we lose and what we gain through friendship.
Right, absolutely. So what inspired you to write House of Trelawney? Tell us about some of the wheels that were turning in your mind at the time.
I wanted to write a book about the effects of the crash of 2008, but that in itself is very dry. So, and I'm a comedic writer. I like trying to make people laugh. And I know a little bit about dysfunctional families. And I thought, well, actually, how much fun would it be to set a dysfunctional family in a house and with tremendous pretensions and very little gravitas or experience of the outside world. They'd almost been, if you like, kept apart from society and kept apart from reality because they lived in this kind of strange microcosm. So that was the idea. And I thought, well, actually, that's quite fun. I can put this dysfunctional family, I can put lots of different generations in one place. I can make them very unworldly, but charming. And that's a fun way to start looking at what happened in 2008 and the fairly cataclysmic consequences of the financial crash.
Right.
And then I thought, I work as well. One of my jobs I have is I work as a company director in the city, and so I'm very interested by finance. I know something about it, and I thought, well, let's have an American who really does understand finance. Let's have a big American equity investor who properly gets it, but is also rather intrigued by the English lifestyle and by castles. Let's put him in the mix, and then let's put a young tech genius into that mix. And really what happened is that I started adding different characters in and seeing what happened. I don't write with a big plan. I tend to write kind of as I go along and just have as much fun as I think. If I have a lot of fun writing it, I hope people have a lot of fun reading it.
Absolutely. So I'm going to put you on the spot now and ask, who's your favourite character in the novel?
I love the character called Blaze, she's very successful in her work, but her personal life is catastrophic. I mean, literally pathetic. She's, she's gone on online dating sites. That hasn't worked. The people who tend to chase after her tend to be the married rather than the marrying kind. She's now in her late 30s, and she's just, on paper, everything looks fine. She's beautiful. She's clever. She's done very well, but emotionally she is absolutely miserable. And I think there's something, which I think for periods of my life I could identify with that.
Right. Okay. So getting into your writing process a bit, how long did it take to write House of Trelawney? Start to finish, how long was this process for you?
So start to finish, it took about 4 years, and I have a day job. So I tend to treat my writing rather like some people might treat an illicit love affair. So I take it off to coffee shops in my lunch break. I get up very early in order to write. I sometimes go away for weekends with the manuscript or on holiday. I mean, my writing is unconventional in that it's my main passion, but I have to treat it like a part-time job.
Right. Okay. So I know you mentioned you have a day job, but if you didn't write, what would you do for work or as a creative pursuit? So you can either choose work or creative pursuit.
Well, I think creative pursuit, I would be a full-time writer. But then I think if I was a full-time writer, I might not have so much to write about because, my day job feeds into my writing. So I find them, although I think, oh God, I wish I had more time to write, actually, the day job's quite useful.
Okay. So getting into your reading life, what was the last book that you finished reading that you would now recommend?
I recently finished a proof of a book that's coming out, I think, in the States in March by Colin McCann called A Paragon. And a paragon means a many-sided object. And it's the story of two fathers, one Israeli, one Palestinian, who have both lost daughters in the conflict. And I thought it was one of the most moving and inspiring and attitude-changing books I've ever read. So I spend quite a lot of time in the Middle East, and even though I've been going there for 30, 40 years, this author, through the story of these two fathers and through the way he portrayed the conflict, has completely changed the way I think about the region. It's an amazing book. I can't recommend it more highly.
I'll definitely be adding that to my list for sure.
Go get it. Honestly, it's incredible.
Wow, I love it. All right, so when you're not reading or writing, and in this case, working, what are you doing?
Eating. Eating as much as possible. I love eating. I'm very bad at cooking, but I like cooking. I've got 3 fantastic daughters. So we just went on a road trip, for example, from New Orleans to Austin. It's lots of fun. I mean, I like, and friends. I mean, I think those are my main recreations, apart from, as you say, reading and writing.
And working.
And working, yeah. Well, working is a thing you have to do.
Right, of course. Necessary evil. All right, so... All right, so part of the show is all about indie booksellers and indie bookstores, and we're always looking for opportunities to, give them a little shout out on the show.
Of course.
So share with our listeners some of your favorite indie bookstores.
So in London, I would highly recommend 3. There's a wonderful indie bookstore in Notting Hill called Lutyens and Rubinstein. It's absolutely charming. In Chelsea, there's one called John Sandow Books. And then I love Daunt's on Marylebone High Street. So those would be my 3 total top favourites in the UK. And then in the US, I just discovered a bookshop on South Congress in Austin, which is a mixture of vintage books and contemporary books, which I completely fell for. So I would anyone passing Austin, check it out. I love the Strand bookstore in New York, and I want to go to Parnassus, which is the one that Anne Patchett runs, and I'm longing to go there. I follow it on Instagram. So I love an indie bookstore completely. You can find me skulking in a corner in many indie bookstores, put it that way.
That's wonderful. So getting back now to House of Trelawney, how do you want readers to feel after reading this book? What are some of the reactions you're hoping for?
What I'm hoping is that people will have fun. That's what I really want. I want people to laugh, and I'm very, very pleased to say that the previews that are coming out in the UK, either on Goodreads or actually in the press, have all said that it's a wickedly funny and life-enhancing read. So if that holds up, I'll be more than happy. I'll be delighted.
Okay. Hannah, thank you so much for coming on the show. Listeners,
thank you for having me.
Absolutely. House of Trelawney will be available in bookstores on Tuesday, February 11th. Readers, you can connect with author Hannah Rothschild at her website, hannahrothschild.com. You can also tune into the rest of my chat with Hannah in our off-the-cuff discussion over on our Patreon page. She shares more about her favorite childhood book and how working in film is different from writing a novel. We also discuss projects she's currently working on. So head on over to patreon.com/bibliofinder and tune in to the rest of our conversation. New this week from Pantheon Books, Till, by Daniel Kelman, translated by Ross Benjamin. New this week from Avery Books, Death is But a Dream, Finding Hope and Meaning at Life's End, by Christopher Carr and Karine Marderoshan. New from Viking Books, Hold On But Don't Hold Still, Hope and Humor from My Seriously Flawed Life, by Christina Kuzmic. New from Penguin Books, I Know You Know Who I Am, a story collection by Peter Kispert. I Know You Know Who I Am explores deception and performance, the uneasiness of reconciling a queer identity with the wider world, and creates a sympathetic, often darkly humorous portrait of characters searching for a path to intimacy. Newly republished by Penguin Classics, Romance in Marseille by Claude McCade, edited by Gary Edward Holcomb. New this week from G.P. Putnam's Sons, American Sherlock, Murder, Forensics, and the Birth of the American CSI by Kate Winkler Dawson. Also new from Putnam's Sons, Salt River by Randy Wayne White. This is book 26 in the Doc Ford novel series. New from G.P. Putnam's Sons for young readers, The Last Confession of Autumn Casterly by Meredith Tate. New in paperback from Dotton Books, Fraternity, an inside look at a year of college boys becoming men by Alexandra Robbins. New this week from Red Hook Books is a debut novel entitled A Witch in Time, and we have the author Constance Sayers here with us to share all the details. Constance, welcome to Biblio Happy Hour.
Oh, thank you so much, Victoria. It's wonderful to be here.
Oh, absolutely. We're very excited to have you on the show. So your debut, A Witch in Time, will be available on bookshelves this week. How are you feeling? How excited are you?
I'm really excited. I mean, it's certainly, I'm by no means an overnight success. It has been something that I have been really working towards for, 20 plus years. So to finally see it happen is really amazing. I'm really pinching myself. So it's been really exciting.
I can only imagine. So tell our listeners about your novel, A Witch in Time, and what can readers expect?
Yeah, so A Witch in Time, it's basically about a curse that has gone wrong. And it starts in 1895 in the French countryside, where the main character, Juliette Lecomte, is 16 years old, and her neighbor is a famous painter, Auguste Marchant, who comes from Paris every summer and, to relax and to paint for the summer. And this has become kind of a tradition. And so he's painted her over the years. And when she's 16, things kind of take a turn where they begin to have a romance, a very ill-advised romance. It's not good, and her mother finds out. Interestingly enough, her mother is kind of the town witch, and her mother is, people come to the house in the middle of the night, for her to make potions and spell casting, and so her mother is very angry, feels that her daughter has been ruined by this affair, and so she casts a spell on Auguste Marchant, the painter. Unfortunately, she drags her daughter to be basically cast through time with him in what ends up being kind of a love story throughout multiple time periods. And there's a third person who's brought into kind of dragged into the curse as well. And so you really essentially have a love triangle that starts in Paris, moves to Hollywood in the 1930s, goes to Taos in 1970, and then has modern day Washington. So it's these three people kind of changing and evolving, and they're different people each time. And so it's just it was a really fun thing to write. And I hope that at the end of the day, I think it's a love story. It's a surprising love story. It's not who you think. And I think that my hope is that you'll be able to see kind of the struggles of women through time. I was very conscious of that also as I was writing in, kind of a more of a Victorian period,
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood in pre-Hays Code Hollywood. So you're kind of the foundation and the formation of like the ideal, like, Hollywood quote unquote woman. So, and then free love in the 1970s. And so it's a really interesting chance to kind of look at the lens of women's history.
Right, absolutely. So, what inspired you to write A Witch in Time? What was the spark? Why this story?
My sister brought home a painting, and she had found it in Boston, and it was just a print. It wasn't anything, valuable or anything. And she found it. She said, "This looks just like you." And this was years ago. And at the time, I looked at the painting, and I had to say it actually did bear a striking resemblance to what I looked like at that age. And I remember it hung on her wall because she said, "Well, I have to put it somewhere because it just reminds me of you." And so all of those years I would go past it, and I kind of kept thinking, like, just toying around with the idea of what if I had a character that was her in the painting. And so that's actually the first scene in the book. And it just, from there, it just kind of became this kind of a what if story. And then I knew I wanted to write about different time periods. And so all of it just kind of came together, and it came together quite quickly. I would say that, my first book, I think it took me like 10 years to write because I just really didn't know how to write a book. And I think you need to know that. And this book was 2 years from beginning to end, which I think is pretty quick. And, I had a lot of input from my writers groups and a lot of great feedback from my agent. But, it was a pretty quick, compared to the first one, it was a very, very quick book.
Right, absolutely. So I'm going to put you on the spot a little and ask.
Oh, no.
Yes, it's coming. Who's your favorite character in the novel?
Oh, I love this question. I will say that I ask anyone who's read the book, it's one of the first things I ask them, because the women are very different. And even though they are the same woman, they have very different personalities. And my favorite is Sandra. And I will tell you, she is no one else's favorite. And people get very, a little bit worked up about this. And I feel that she's actually the darkest of the characters, but you don't get to the end of the novel without her. And I think that she kind of really does some of the real work that needs to be done, and a little bit more, she's a moral compass for the book in a way, and for the overall overarching character of Juliet in all these different forms. So she's my favorite. Plus it's just great to write about, they're in Taos cutting an album, and she was a musician, and it was just fun.
Right, absolutely. So if you didn't write, what would you do for work or as a creative pursuit? Seeing that you do have a day job, what would you do as a creative pursuit?
So I did toy around recently with the idea of starting a winery. And my sister has a farm in Pennsylvania, about 100-acre farm, and for a while I seriously toyed around with both she and I with doing something with that. So wine is one of my great passions, and so I think that if I weren't writing, I would probably try to pursue something, try to grow my own grapes and try to make a go in viticulture.
Right. Okay, that sounds really interesting. So, getting into your reading life now, what was the last book that you read that you'd now recommend?
I had a great opportunity to pick up an advanced reader copy of Louisa Morgan's The Age of Witches, and I think it is so wonderful. It's just a great period piece with witches, and so that's great. And so that was the last thing that I read, and I'm very excited about that. That's coming out, I believe, in April. And so totally worth picking up. It's a great book.
Awesome. So when you're not reading and when you're not writing, and I know work takes up a huge chunk of our day, so when you're not reading, not writing, not working, what are you doing?
I'm trying to explore Washington usually. There's so many great restaurants that are have opened up in the last 20 years here. I mean, Washington, since I moved here, has really undergone a great transformation. So I tend to, try to explore different neighborhoods or different restaurants. And like I said earlier, I'm a bit of a wine enthusiast, and so I definitely try to get out to Virginia to some of the vineyards here. We've got some great, vineyards and just really just try to explore the culture here. That's what I'm usually found doing if I'm not writing.
Okay, awesome. So part of the podcast is all about indie bookstores and indie booksellers, and we love having them on the show, and we're always looking for opportunities to shout them out. So share with our listeners some of your favorite indie bookstores.
Absolutely. Washington, we have a lot here. I'm very lucky to have so many Politics and Prose locations. And in fact, February 12th, I will be at the Politics and Prose Wharf location, which is interesting because it actually plays a part in the book, the Wharf location. So it was a fabulous location.
Yeah.
But I love Kramer Books and Solid State. I'm a bit of a bookstore tourist, I admit. I will have to say that Books and Books in Coral Gables, Florida is, if I'm ever anywhere in Florida, you'll find me at Books and Books. and also the Vermont Bookstore in Middlebury, is just one of my favorites. I mean, I can just get lost in there for hours. So those are probably two of my favorite bookstores outside of Washington.
Oh, awesome. So getting back to A Witch in Time, how do you want readers to feel after reading this book? What are the reactions you're hoping for? And I know you've been getting some early reactions, but when it becomes available to just, everyone out there in the general public, what are you hoping for?
I think that some people have been very surprised by the book. I think kind of an emotional ending. I really wanted people to feel hopeful at the end, and I hope that they do. And I do like readers to kind of interpret the endings of things. So at the end, I hope that people kind of feel one way or the other, but I do feel like it has been kind of a wild ride through the book in terms of all these different lives. And I do hope people feel that they have kind of been witness to different pieces of history. That was really my hope with it, was that you just kind of one woman has a vantage to point to so many different times in history. And that was really what I had hoped people would take away from it, kind of through her eyes. So.
Awesome. Constance, thank you so much for coming on the show, everyone. A Witch in Time will be available in bookstores on Tuesday, February 11th.
Thank you so much.
Readers, you can connect with author Constance Sayers at her website, constancesayers.com. She's also on Facebook at Constance Sayers Books, and you can also find her on Twitter and Instagram at Constance Sayers. You can also tune in to the rest of my chat with Constance in our off-the-cuff discussion over on our Patreon page. She shares her work schedule, where she writes, her favorite childhood books, and other projects she's currently working on. So head on over to patreon.com/bibliofinder and tune in to the rest of our conversation. New this week from Little Brown and Company, The Mercies by Karan Millwood Hargrave. New in paperback from Back Bay Books, Summer of '69 by Elin Hildebrand. New this week from Simon & Schuster, The Falcon Thief by Joshua Hammer. The Falcon Thief is a true crime adventure about a rogue who trades in rare birds and their eggs, and the wildlife detective determined to stop him. New this week from Atria Emily Bestler Books, The Chill by Scott Carson. The Chill is a thriller about a supernatural force set in motion a century ago that now threatens to devastate New York City. New this week from Scribner Books, Washington's End, The Final Years and the Forgotten Struggle by Jonathan Horn. New in paperback from Gallery Books, The Stationery Shop by Marjan Kamali. Readers, if you need a more tailored selection of books to keep on your radar, or you want to hear more from your favorite authors that we've had on the show, become a patron at patreon.com/bibliofinder. For $1 per month, you'll get our monthly top shelf recommendations of new releases that we're super excited about. You'll also hear more from your favorite authors in our off-the-cuff discussions. You'll get our full Meet the Bookseller podcast episodes, get bookish-themed Instagram templates, plus lots more. That's patreon.com/bibliofinder. I've included a link in the show notes so you can sign up there. New this week from Grove Atlantic, Shuggie Bain by Douglas Stewart. Shuggie Bain is a heart-wrenching story of a young boy and his alcoholic mother, whose love is only matched by her pride. Also new from Grove Atlantic, Bird Summons by Leila Abulela. Bird Summons is an enchanting, heartfelt novel about 3 Muslim women in search of freedom, faith, and happiness. Also new from Grove Atlantic, The Recipe for Revolution by Carolyn Shute. New this week from Catapult Books, A Map is Only One Story. 20 writers on immigration, family, and the meaning of home. Edited by Nicole Chung and Mensa Demari. Readers, I hope you enjoyed today's show. A list of all the books mentioned in the show will be available over at bibliohappyhour.com. To shop all the books I've mentioned in the show and to find a bookstore near you or when you're traveling, visit bibliofinder.com. If you're on Twitter or Facebook, please let us know at Biblio Happy Hour and tag us in your post over on Instagram, also at Biblio Happy Hour. If you enjoy listening to our podcast, please share Biblio Happy Hour with your favorite bookish friends, share us on social media, and please leave us a rating and review. Don't forget, Biblio Lifestyle newsletter subscribers are the first to know all the podcast happenings, get free goodies in the mail, and they can enter for a chance to win some free books. So if you're not on the list, sign up now for our free weekly delivery at bibliolifestyle.com. I've included a link in the show notes so you can sign up there. Alrighty readers, that's it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening and happy reading.